some of Maple's officials are corrupt, and it is time to let them know that holding on to the money bags will only get them bullets. We are not robbers, but we do not mind occasional guest appearances. Mission requirements. Enter the residence of 5 targeted officials and the evidence of the darknet. Rewards: 120,000 experience, 500 darknet reputation. Without the special reward, it is just an ordinary task. I'll just get it done and over with. The transport plane took off with Han Zio after a refueling. A few hours later, they arrived in a new novice village. The forum started having lots of new posts published by Aquamarine. The content could be summarized in one sentence. Black Phantom is coming to the Western continent. Poseidon snorted and hurriedly clicked and viewed a post. After reading it, he began sweating. Don't tell me Black Phantom is running around every single novice village. If this was to be true, everyone simply had to wait patiently, and the advantages of being in a guild would vanish. We learned some skills earlier than others and were able to finish quests much earlier. There are bound to be some advantages for joining us. NPC's actions can't be controlled. Don't try to force things. Poseidon glanced at the forum again and suddenly screamed, "What the? Come look at this post." What? Magical energy was a key attribute. It directly affected combat strength. And with the novice players' energy being so poor, they were usually unable to support an Esper's consumption. Espers needed this skill for sure. Jupiter was an Esper. He turned jealous and suddenly realized a serious problem. Wait a moment. When we were in the southern continent, Black Phantom did not teach us this skill. Everyone stood silent. Could it have been that when the Black Phantom was going to the novice village, he would give better things to them? In that case, wouldn't players in the southern continent be disadvantaged? On the forum, western continent players were as if they were dogs that had eaten spring medicine, jumping up and down, posting their videos, and showing off. Do you see the huge anticipation in these small eyes of ours? Come on, hurry. The western continent's players were almost celebrating like it was a festival. Some of them who were about to leave the novice village to explore the map immediately reverted back to where they were upon hearing the news of Black Phantom. They hurriedly returned to their villages, waiting for the Black Phantom's arrival in great excitement. Han Zio has also watched Bun Hit Dog's video, which was exactly what he had hoped for, to gain the curiosity and interest of players by sending out a video with some clues in it. The information flow between players and NPCs was restricted. They both had a different set of intelligence at hand, so leaking out his real name was not an issue. The Germinal organization knew that he was Zero and might even know the original name of his body, Han Zio, but they did not know he was Black Phantom and Han Zio. Star Dragon knew that he was Han Zio and Zero, but they were not sure if he was Black Phantom. Players knew that he was Black Phantom, his name was Han Zio, and he served the Star Dragon before, but they did not know he was Zero. Oh, players have yet to receive any information on Zero. Darknet only knew him as Black Phantom. Every organization only had a fraction of the information, and if his true identity was exposed one day, he would just have to change his face, and nothing would happen. He could even increase his legendary level by the time he was strong enough, and choose to reveal all his identities. Since the official launch, Han Zio's name had always been on the top of the Planet Aquamarine forums, which made him quite well known. Just like celebrities, the more people that knew him, the easier it was for him to strengthen his impression on people. After going to 2 more novice villages, Han Zio decided to take some time off so that the players could get some money, and he could have some time for himself to do other stuff. At the top of his to-do list would be to get the bonfire mini-reaction furnace. He called Legeniu to ask where the seller wanted to carry out the deal, and he gave him the seller's number. "Greetings," the person on the phone said. It was an electrical-generated fake voice, so he could not figure out the age nor the gender. It was very confidential. "How are we going to carry out the deal?" Han Zio was very straight to the point. "In 3 days. In a moment, I will send you the location. Bring your money, and I will bring the stuff," the person said. "Okay, I will get one of my men to carry out the deal," Han Zio replied. 10 seconds after hanging up the call, Han Zio received a message. Severus, the city near the border of Ordina. Financial organizations and families were deeply rooted in Ordina, so it was filled with competition and very clear class differentiation, as the country's policies were focused on the elites. Every city felt grand and solemn, and the regular rainfall created a light fog that made it look gloomy. It was drizzling in Severus. The weather was damp and bleak, which suited the atmosphere of the city. In a residential flat that had been made into a surveillance room that was connected to every traffic cam within 3 streets, a dozen or so men wearing black were busy doing something. This was an intelligence action group in Ordina. The agents gathered around to capture an escaped criminal who had stolen classified country intelligence. Continue your surveillance. Snipers, get ready. Take down the target once he meets the dealer. Airplanes were not allowed to dock at Ordina, therefore, Han Zio traveled by electromagnetic hover boots for a day after alighting to reach Severus. Wanderers entering the city formed a long queue at the border of Severus while the soldiers of Ordina were patrolling the area. He would be looking for a beating if he went in the official way, so he had to be smuggled in. With enough money and threatening from his gun, the smuggling process was smooth. Just like mankind never being able to kill all cockroaches, there would always be such smugglers no matter how tight security was at the border. Han Zio's clothing covered him from head to toe as he had to hide his equipment, and he carried a large backpack with his guns. Light rain poured on his raincoat, and hiding under the cap was a different face that Han Zio had changed into. The reminder from Antonio made sense, and he did not want to mess up this deal, so there was no way he would have appeared with the face of Black Phantom or his true face. The location was a cafe at the side of the road, seat 7. As the buyer, if he did not arrive first, the seller might not even appear. Therefore, he sat at seat 7 and looked around the cafe. The radio was playing slow music, and he could see the fog outside the windows. It was quite soothing. Han Zio looked normal as he lowered his head to sip his coffee, but he had noticed something unusual. The guy reading newspapers sitting 3 seats away is breathing heavily, and has a much higher heartbeat rate than normal. The woman drinking coffee at the bar is sweating at the side of her head. The man that passed by the floor-to-ceiling window had a very steady pace, but slowed down on purpose for 30% when he passed by the window. The second person from the left hiding from the rain is stamping the floor with the back of his feet, which is a sign of worry and nervousness, Han Zio thought. At LV-55, his senses were at a very high level. Through the tiny details of movement and expression of normal people, he was able to figure out their emotional state. Mission introduction. The mysterious seller you're having a deal with is an outlaw of Ordina. Your deal with him has diverged. Unlucky for you, you're now also under surveillance, dragged into a storm that does not concern you. Mission requirement, run away from Ordina's pursuit. Reward, 65,000 experience. Bonus reward, unknown. I have been so damn unlucky recently. Han Zio was upset. All he wanted to do was get the mini bonfire reaction furnace, but it seemed like he was now involved in a rather serious event. Could things not just be peaceful and easier for him? The item was very important to Han Zio. It was the core of mechanical suit. He did not want to give it up just because of a small risk. He was already involved anyways, and even if he left right now, they would still have their eyes on him, so he decided to stay put for the moment and react accordingly. After a few minutes of waiting, a man wearing a pair of sunglasses, a hat, a dark green coat, and a scarf covering the lower half of his face came into the cafe and sat opposite Han Zio. He placed the metal suitcase that he was carrying on the table, looked at Han Zio, and did not say a word. The seller knew that the buyer was Black Phantom, but Han Zio was using a different face. Han Zio and the seller stared at each other for a while, and confirmed the other party's identity in silence. Strangers would not have stared at each other for this long without saying a word. The seller entered the passcode and turned the open suitcase toward Han Zio. Inside the suitcase was a donut-shaped small device with its wires exposed outside. This was the mini bonfire reaction furnace, an energy core that was able to generate electricity automatically from solar and condensed fuel. It was also a piece of superhuman equipment as energy could be turned into fuel as a power source. Han Zio confirmed it was the real thing with his hands, took out his laptop, sent the money to the seller in a flash, and immediately said, "Run." Without waiting for the seller's reaction, Han Zio shoved the mini bonfire reaction furnace into his backpack and stood up suddenly. He took out his Berserk Eagle and shot many times at the people that he had previously confirmed to be monitoring him. Ordina agents took action as soon as the deal was completed. But Han Zio was a second quicker. He had the upper hand. Without any hesitation, the seller broke through the floor-to-ceiling window and ran with all his might. He was a superhuman, too, as he covered a few meters each step he took. To divert the numbers of the enemy, Han Zio ran in another direction. As countless footsteps closed in on Han Zio, agents appeared from the streets around and started shooting at him. The people on the street ran away screaming. The magnetically controlled retractable armor that Han Zio had just equipped reflected the bullets away. He slid across the battlefield with a gun in both hands and shot at any agent who exposed their head. Naturally, he did not miss a single shot. Suddenly, Han Zio felt a pull on his feet. He looked down and saw something water-like wrapping around his calf, slowing down his speed. Glancing at the information of the enemy on the interface, Han Zio saw that it was an Esper around LV-30. As Han Zio's speed slowed down, two pugilist agents used the opportunity to dash out from the roadside and started attacking him with energy-covered fists. It was at this moment that he heard the sound of engines as two enormous black police vehicles dashed out from the intersection. The vehicles splashed the water in an arc with a drift and stopped in front of Han Zio, facing him sideways and blocking the path. Han Zio made a sharp change in direction and slid over the roofs of the two vehicles with his electromagnetic hover boots. The soldiers in the vehicles alighted hastily to fire at him, but the bullets could not catch up to him and left a trail of holes on the walls of the building. Ordina had a lot of men around the area. No matter how Han Zio tried to get rid of the pursuit, there will always be another car at the front of his path. He shot down the traffic cams, took detours, used his electromagnetic hover boots to climb over walls and buildings, outran the soldiers time and time again. But there were always cars stopping him. The other team had already lost the cellar. Han Zio was the only target left, but he was too difficult for his men to catch. Nag, take him down. Having successfully escaped from the last few cars, Han Zio jumped across the gaps between buildings and looked for a hidden place to change his face and clothes. Suddenly, bullets from a shotgun exploded on his back as smoke and flames broke out. Han Zio got knocked straight into the wall, and shattered bricks fell to the floor. The close-range explosion had made Han Zio lose his hearing for a little. He got rid of the dust on his head and looked up with a frown. A man was standing at the top of a building. He had all kinds of equipment on him, a bulletproof vest, waterproof clip belts, 4 handguns around his waist and thighs, a sniper rifle and 2 different assault rifles hanging behind his back, and a shotgun in his hands with smoke coming out of the muzzle. A cannon master, you have entered combat. You have received the following information. Mag Leslie, level 56. Their backup will arrive in no time if I'm stalled, and I don't have enough supplies to deal with an outnumbered fight. I need to use the opportunity created by damaging him to escape, Han Zio thought. Blue lights flashed from his shoes, and he slid away, trying to run. Mag remained expressionless as Han Zio ran away. He had noticed much earlier that the speed Han Zio had was from his shoes, so he used his RX-108 assault rifle and shot with high accuracy. He knew that Han Zio would not be able to escape if his shoes were broken. However, a piece of magnetically controlled retractable armor quickly covered the shoes and blocked the bullets. That was close. Han Zio was shocked. Luckily, he had been prepared and was able to react in time. Had his shoes been destroyed, the difficulty to escape would have been many times higher. Being attacked and not fighting back was not Han Zio's style. Mag stood on the ceiling with one assault rifle in each hand. He used it at the same time. The increased fire rate from both skills together turned the bullets into a storm raining down on Han Zio, keeping him stuck on the wall. The holes in the wall turned to waves of dust, and the cracks grew even larger. He should be almost dead. Mag was confident. This round of explosive damage that he had dealt with the combination of abilities and hundreds of bullets should have left the target almost dead, if not dead. Dust filled the air and blocked the view inside the pit. A loud and weird sound appeared. Suddenly, an invisible force field exploded on the wall, pushing away the rain and bullets, creating an area of empty space. Field repulsive machine. Using the repulsion from the machine, Han Zio jumped out of the pit and remained stagnant in the air for a short moment. He held up the Phantom Ghost sniper with one hand and aimed at Mag from afar, locking onto his position. Time seemed to have slowed down. Mag felt a chill down his spine. The gun gave him a piercing sense of coldness, and his intuition told him that it was extremely deadly. He tried to dodge as soon as he could, but Han Zio fired his shot before he could dodge fully. In the flash of blue light, Mag felt an irresistible force bursting on his chest. He was knocked into the air and rolled to the other side of the roof, barely grabbing the edge of the rooftop in the last second before falling down. You destroyed Mag Leslie's. You dealt 772 points of damage to Mag Leslie. Mag Leslie has entered moderate bleeding state, losing 5 health for 60 seconds. Mag Leslie has entered penetrated lung state, minus 10% dexterity, minus 15% movement speed. This explosive shot was used within, so the damage was frightening. Han Zio took a deep breath. For the first time, his magnetically controlled retractable armor was close to being destroyed. The damage from Mag's storm of bullets had decreased its durability to the alarming zone of 100 points. If he had still been wearing the first version of it without all the improvements that he had made, it would have been destroyed. Cannon masters were known for their firepower. If Mag could get better firearms, his damage would have further increased. To Mag, the fact that Han Zio was still standing after all the bullets he had fired was already quite unbelievable. If Han Zio were to stay and continue the fight, he would almost certainly win. But he heard the engines from afar, their backup was here. Anger and dismay filled his chest. Failing the mission was like a slap on his face. Ordina agents started searching the area, which expectedly led to no result. They could only pass their recorded fighting video to the intelligence unit for analysis. However, although they did not have any hope that doing this would give them any valuable information, they surprisingly found someone whose fighting style was the same as the buyers. Black Phantom. They look completely different, but he might have worn a skin mask. Ordina's intelligence unit took the appearance of Black Phantom very seriously. They opened a meeting and told the hacker unit to play with the source of this information, which was the short call Han Zio had with the seller about the deal location. Greetings. How are we going to carry out the deal? In 3 days. In a moment, I will send you the location. Bring your money and I will bring the stuff. Okay, I will get one of my men to carry out the deal. The last sentence was the key. The person that the buyer sent was astonishingly Black Phantom, which meant that the identity of the buyer was clear. After running away from Mag's sights, Han Zio turned back to the direction that he had come from where the surveillance cameras were destroyed. He changed his clothes and the face on the skin mask, dived into the crowd, and escaped successfully. He headed to the border, and just as he expected, the border was locked down as special operation units and scouts searched everyone who passed by. Han Zio knew where human smuggler was. The border being locked down would not obstruct him from smuggling himself out. Although the price increased, it was acceptable to him. After going to a rural area in Severus and smuggling himself out of the city, 1 hour had already passed. Han Zio's phone suddenly rang. It was from Bennett. Why did the Ordina intelligence organization call the higher-ups of my organization, asking for an explanation and even compensation? What the hell did you do on the Western continent? Who in the world would say, okay, I will send one of my men over then go over himself? Even if you want to confuse others, at least don't fight in such an obvious and unique style. Well, it was supposed to hide my identity, but it seems like that didn't work. Anyways, don't worry, it's not a big issue. I only fought some Ordina people, beat up a few agents, and destroyed a few buildings, nothing much. The people of Ordina were quite welcoming. By the way, the weather here is not good at all. It keeps raining and feels really gloomy. It's not like the southern continent, where it feels like spring and is very comfortable. I prefer southern continent's weather much more. Bennett was stunned. How did you change the topic so naturally to talk about the weather? Could your skills to change topic be any worse? Han Zio laughed it off and said, it was an accident, that's all. I've got something to attend to, got to go. You as ho. Han Zio hung up the call quickly before Bennett finished the sentence. Phew, that was definitely a misstep. Didn't expect Ordina to be this angry. Completed. You received 65,000 experience. You completed the hidden requirement. Stop Mag and help the mysterious seller to escape within 3 minutes. You received bonus rewards. Character summon card, Dion. LV30 special dungeon crystal. Plus 30 relationship with Dion. Trading is now available. Dion. Han Zio remembered with joy after thinking back for some time. Dion was a mysterious NPC on planet Aquamarine. He was part of a hidden organization that kept a very low profile. Dion sold all sorts of rare supplies. He was like a hidden store, and there was no fixed mission for players to meet him. So, he was the seller. Han Zio was a little astonished. His phone rang again. This time it was from the seller. My phone was tapped. I have settled it, so my calls will not expose any more secrets. I dragged you into this. I heard Mag also took part in the mission. If you did not warn me, I might not have been able to escape. I owe you one. Since you are calling me, it means you wanted to repay me. Han Zio acted like it was not a big deal, but he was laughing with happiness on the inside. You can call me Dion, the seller said. Usually I don't do business with new customers, but you're an exception. I will give you 20% off everything. Only 20%. Han Zio raised his tone. Can you give a bit more? Dion was stunned. Should a legendary killer not be more mysterious? He remained silent for a moment and replied, 20% is a very high discount already. Fine, Han Zio said mockingly. Not long after, Han Zio received a message, the item list of Dion's store. There were many rare items, and some of them were likely even secret research documents of the 6 nations. Quickly deciding with a few mechanical items, Han Zio asked, how do we make the deal? Through a meetup, but this time at a rural area in 3 days' time. I will give you a location, and I will send someone to pass the stuff to you. My identity is rather sensitive, so I will not turn up due to my own safety. Please understand. Han Zio was pleased. LV30 Special Dungeon Crystal, Alena Infiltration Plan. Introduction. Alena is a secret research lab of Ordina. A few years ago, Dion infiltrated this facility and stole their military secrets. This will be your test. Dungeon type, backwards time travel dungeon. Player completion count, 0. Shortest completion time, hours, minutes and seconds. Record holders, none. The dungeon missions only appeared when inside the dungeon. Hanzio guessed that it would require him to take on the identity of Dion and steal the secret documents just as Dion did. Using Dungeon Crystal was risky for him, so he kept it unclaimed in the interface, considering selling it to players in the future. 3 days later, at the meetup location, 2 of Dion's men were waiting in masks, carrying the items that Hanzio had ordered. Hanzio paid the money and got the things right at the spot. It went smoothly this time. Going back to the cargo plane, Hanzio opened the metal suitcase that he had received, which held the materials securely. U9 colloidal bulletproof membrane. Its functions had already been mentioned before. Nerve's biological transmission cable increased energy efficiency, which led to a higher output. Using it in a mechanical suit would slightly increase its basic stats. High-speed injection module could be placed inside the mechanical suit to inject some potions, such as healing potion and steroids. He also bought some painkiller. 5 days later, with dark bags under his eyes, Hanzio looked at the completed suit with a smile of relief. It's done. The scan is successful. You have successfully created a new prototype blueprint. Please name the blueprint. Hanzio contemplated for a while. Finally, I have completed the mechanical suit. Hanzio was excited. He had also received close to 20,000 experience from making it. Viper was mainly used to increase the power of a single person and consisted of generally smaller modules. The power capacity was not full yet, so it could include more modules in the future if Hanzio so desired. Viper raised the combat power of Hanzio to a whole new level, and it did not interfere with him using other guns, grenades, or weapons. This mechanical suit was a second combat tactic, which provided higher survival capabilities and increased all of his stats. If it was in combat mode, it would increase Hanzio's strength by more than 2 times. Hanzio now had a sniper at long range and mechanical suit at close combat. Furthermore, Viper was lightweight. It could be folded into a suitcase, and Hanzio had his magnetically controlled retractable armor for when he was not wearing the mechanical suit. I will have to test out its actual combat capabilities. Hanzio decided on the next destination. It was where the tragedy of La Potter took place. What convenient timing. Killing the beast boss over there was also part of his plan. The tragedy of La Potter occurred in a forbidden zone that was filled with wild beasts. The beasts in the area were strengthened by a mutation virus called Death Virus. A group of mutated rhinoceroses galloped across the maroon earth. All the beasts here are mutated. At the exteriors of the forbidden zone, with serious expressions on their faces, Yan Diane and Ned were analyzing the situation through their binoculars. They were lone superheroes that had taken on a contract to enter the zone and search for a group of civilian explorers. This civilian exploring group had entered the Forbidden Zone and put themselves in such a dangerous spot all to investigate the source of the virus, which was very noble in the eyes of Yan Diane and Ned. Therefore, they have accepted the contract without hesitation. There has always been radiation in La Potter, which is the cause of virus mutation, Ned said. On the other side of the Forbidden Zone, Hanzio had arrived at his destination. The air was filled with a rotten smell and a hint of poison. The plants on the ground were mutated as well. The spawn area is a little too huge. I don't know where the Beast King is. Hanzio put down the metal suitcase, opened it, and donned the Viper mechanical suit. The hologram display had zooming functions and compiled data collected from many scanning modules, which provided more detailed information on the surroundings. There was also a radar at the top left side of the screen that could detect any signs of life within a radius of 500 meters. At a few hundred meters away were a group of more than 10 giraffe-like creatures with fearsome bone spurs, which clearly indicated they were not a tamed species. A few of the larger ones raised their neck and looked over to Hanzio's position. They seemed to have noticed him. Stealth mode. Optical camouflage was turned on, and the exterior of the mechanical suit turned into the same color as the surroundings like a chameleon. The giraffe-like creatures shook their heads around but could not find him, so they lay back down. If the level of the enemy was high enough, they would have been able to see through the camouflage, but these beasts were clearly far from that level. Han Zhao continued to move forward, searching for the target. 2 hours had gone by, and Han Zhao had already scanned dozens of mutated flora and fauna, which were all stored into the database. He had also fought a few beasts with various levels and vital signs to determine the approximate strength certain vital sign levels presented. The highest leveled beast that he had met was a pack of wolf-like beasts at LV-42, which was not his target. With a voice command, the armor around Han Zhao's calves split open. Inside was a small space that stored the spider detectors. He activated them and made them spread out toward the center of the zone. The images captured by them were displayed on his goggles. Spider detectors worked in a shaky but rather quick way. After a while, Han Zhao could see the situation of the center zone, which was filled with ferocious-looking beasts. Suddenly, the image from Spider Detector number 1 experienced a slight shake, and loud crashing sounds could be heard from afar. The beasts were then seen all going in the same direction. Spider Detector number 1 climbed up a long-haired boar and headed toward the same direction. 2 superhumans running for their lives from the beasts appeared in sight. One of them was in a spur who could release white shockwaves from the hands, which was quite powerful and knocked closing beasts back again and again. However, the sound it produced attracted more and more beasts. Han Zhao raises his eyebrows in surprise. Right the next moment, a white lion that was 5 meters tall and more than 10 meters long appeared. All the other beasts got out of his way with fear, and those who did not were all dead. Han Zhao's eyes twinkled. That was most likely the Beast King. Young Diane and Ned ran with all their might to the extent that their lungs felt like it was burning. Behind them were more than 100 mutated beasts and an enormous white lion. The beasts were chasing closely with the enormous white lion leading ahead. Ned's shockwaves could only stop its movement for a mere second and could not even push it back even the slightest distance. Ned was sweating heavily. He was running out of energy. This time, a cliff appeared in front. There was a gap on the ground that could only fit a human, and he had to enter sideways. Quick, hide inside. They were overjoyed. Suddenly, Ned noticed a huge shadow below him expanding at a fast pace. Turning around with surprise, Ned saw the white lion jump toward him and slam its claws straight down. The wind from the raw power of the beast was so strong that Ned could barely open his eyes or breathe. "You go first," young Diane shouted as he pushed Ned away. They almost did not make it. Such strong raw strength. Yan Diane's face was twitching from the pain. A strong pugilist like him had been critically injured by just one hit. The power of this lion was unheard of. As it clawed at the hole, the opening became larger, so it would not be long before young Diane and Ned had nowhere to hide. Their hearts sank to the bottom. Ned bit his lips and said, "Your wounds are too severe. You be the bait, and maybe I can live." Young Diane looked at his heavily wounded body and said, "It's true I won't be able to escape. It's better for one to die than both. If you can make it out alive, remember to take care of my family." "I will. I will raise your child and take care of your wife." They looked at each other and stayed silent for a moment. Then they both gave a bitter smile. "Stop talking nonsense. If we're going to die, we'll die together." Young Diane stood up in a struggle and said, "We'll use everything we have left." Ned nodded. Just as they were going to leave and use everything they had, a flash of blue light dashed across the night sky and hit the white lion's left eye. Immediately, it burst into blood. Then they heard the sound of a gunshot. The white lion roared in anger and sprinted toward the source of the gunshot. Young Diane and Ned were stunned, which then turned into excitement. Someone's came to help. 500 meters away, Han Zhao lay prone on the floor with the ghost sniper rifle, blue light glowing along the circuits on its body. Through the sniper's scope, he saw the white lion rushing toward him with a bloody left eye. This shot was fired with Flaming Will, which this time it triggered a lucky 2.2 times damage, together with Vital Point and Sneak Attack critical damage. The damage was an astonishing 1,800. This was the highest damage Han Zhao had dealt with a single shit. However, the white lion was still alive and well, like it did not affect him. Han Zhao looked at the information on the interface, and as he expected, the white lion was indeed the Beast King. Its real name was Mutant White Lion King, LV-56. Its health was a horrifying amount of more than 18,000, so the shot only to around 10% of its health, as well as a sight loss debuff. This boss was supposed to be fought by a team, but Han Zhao was solo. However, with the new mechanical suit, the risk was much lower. Han Zhao stood up and slid backward while firing with his sniper continuously. Despite wearing Viper, he would not opt for close-range combat. Mixing combat strategies was the right way to go. By using the sniper and mechanical suit at the same time, he could have an advantage in both close-up and ranged combat. The scanning module analyzed the nearby terrain and backed up automatically without Han Zio having to look back, so he could fully focus on dealing damage. Young Diane and Ned saw from afar that Han Zio was going to face the White Lion King head-on. "Don't fight him at such a close range," they shouted at Han Zio in shock. This mysterious person in the mechanical suit was there to save them. He was their hope. They could remember how easily Young Diane had been defeated, and this guy might very well end up the same. Such a small-sized human, yet he still chose to face the enormous beast head-on. It was like throwing an egg at a stone. It would have no impact. The man and the lion crashed against each other. The result was certain in the minds of Young Diane and Ned. They almost wanted to close their eyes and not see how cruel the end would be for that mysterious man. But they were wrong. The mysterious man not only did not suffer a tragic loss, but it was the White Lion that was growling in pain. The White Lion King was knocked back, and half of Han Zio's body was hammered into the ground. They were unbelievably on par. Han Zio had a lighter weight. He had to direct the strength into the ground to not be knocked up. With the leg muscles unleashing their energy, Han Zio jumped out of the ground and swung his leg onto the White Lion's head like a whip. With a loud sound, a ripple appeared in the air. The White Lion's skull changed shape from the power. Its whole body was sent rolling away and smashing onto the ground. Oh my god! Young Diane and Ned were completely stunned by what they saw. Their sizes were more than 10 times apart, and that terrifying White Lion had just lost to this mysterious person. In strength, Young Diane felt his throat going dry. What he had seen was too impactful. Just because he could not do it, did not mean others could not. He had fought with other pugilists that were stronger than him, and none of them even came close to how strong the White Lion King was. Yet, this mysterious man was even stronger than that. "What mechanical suit is that? I've never seen that before," Young Diane said. Ned's eyes continued staring straight ahead, not sparing Young Diane a glance. During combat mode, Viper gave an attribute boost of 78 STR and 45 Dex, which made these two attributes of Han Zio even higher than the White Lion King's. What was even more horrifying was that his could further improve the attributes from Viper. Han Zio had noticed Young Diane and Ned much earlier, but since he did not know who they were, he did not bother much about it. Han Zio fought the mutant White Lion King at a very close range, each of his punches and kicks dealing a high amount of damage. Energy was flowing rapidly from the mini bonfire reaction furnace, and the high amount of armor protected him from White Lion King's attacks. Only using fists and legs was a total waste on all the functions the mechanical suit had. Han Zio had turned on the heating gloves and sunworm and lit the White Lion King's fur on fire, leaving burn marks around his body. Their fight shook the ground like an earthquake. Even the duo watching from afar could feel it as they spectated the heated fight in awe. Although White Lion King's attacks became strong and faster over time, Han Zio still had the upper hand. He could avoid most attacks because of how agile he was, and even for those that he did not manage to avoid, they could not penetrate his suit. The Viper was a piece of equipment ahead of its time. It should never have even appeared in front of players in version 1.0. In fact, no mechanical suit was supposed to have been created in version 1.0 and definitely not owned by any player. After countless punches, the White Lion King's health was down to around 30%. The White Lion King howled toward the sky. It had entered rage mode, or as the players called it, the second phase. Han Zio could feel the pressure bursting in a short moment. I shouldn't face him directly during rage mode. Han Zio decided to retreat to a safer range. For the time being, it was his combat style to be able to strike and escape anytime he wanted. The White Lion King chased him for some time. Then it slowed down, showing signs of exhaustion. Just at this moment, cooldown ended. Han Zio immediately held up his ghost sniper rifle and shot at the other undamaged eye of the White Lion King. With this one shot, the only eye that the White Lion King had left burst into a cloud of blood. It was gravely injured and fell to the ground with just a few hundred points of health left. "It's dead." In his excitement, Han Zio let out a sigh of relief. Viper's power was higher than he had expected, and it covered the mechanic's weakness of having low physical attributes and provided strong protection at close range. The White Lion King was unable to move, so Han Zio went up and finished it easily. He took out the retractable knife and cut out its heart. It was the size of a basketball, filled with violet-colored nerves, hot like a ball of fire. You received a special item. You have triggered mission. Mission introduction. Beasts in this area are all infected by death virus. Some organizations are looking for research samples that are strong enough. That's right, I'm talking about this heart you're holding. Mission requirement. Bring to Louis Biological Research Institution in 7 days. Reward, Death Virus Drug X1. This mission was a bonus rewards mission triggered by the heart. The drug reward was able to increase one's attributes permanently, and there was a small chance to give the user a rare talent ability. In the previous life, the Beast King boss was always killed within hours after spawning. And since the death virus drug could be used more than once, the biggest guilds were the ones that controlled the area to grind the drug. Louis Biological Research Institution was open to the general public, and players could exchange all kinds of weird materials for drugs that were not any less weird. We came here to save an exploration team. They went deep into the zone to find the cure of the virus and have lost contact. We hope you can help us. You triggered grade D mission. Accept or reject. Reject. Saving them would mean having to bring a group of normal people across the forbidden zone. The chance of success was too low. Every second spent there would increase the level of danger. Han Zio's target was only the mutated heart, and it was completed. Thus, there was no need for him to waste his time in the zone. They are in danger because they wanted to solve the disaster. How can you not help? Ned said anxiously. Han Zio turned on his hovering shoes and left without replying. It was clear what he meant at this moment. Do whatever you want, but don't drag me into it. The duo watched with resignation as Han Zio left. Not everyone is kind like them, and they knew that, but they were still upset over losing such strong help. Han Zio rushed to Maple, as the mutated heart mission had a time limit. Louis Research Institution was in Kalos City in Maple. A receptionist walked to him with a well-mannered smile as soon as he walked in. Hi, do you require an introduction to the business scope of Louis Group companies? Han Zio raised the metal suitcase in his hands and said, I have a heart from a death virus-infected being. One of your researchers might be interested. Please wait a moment, I will inform a superior. The lady receptionist guided Han Zio to the sofa and left. Louis Research Institution accepted exterior research projects, so there were always customers who came to visit. After some time, two people covered in bandages walked in. Han Zio raised his head as he smelled the odor of blood. It was the superhero duo he had met in the Forbidden Zone. These guys were saving some exploring team. Could it be that the team was from Louis Research Institution? Looks like they failed and are badly injured. Han Zio raised his brows but stayed put as they did not recognize him. A guy with spectacles and looking like someone of a high position walked out the lift and trotted toward the duo with a face full of hope. Heroes, you have returned. He sounded very welcoming. Sorry, Mr. Kate. We failed the mission, Ned said in a very apologetic tone. Kate's expression changed. Are they all dead? Sorry, they were infected. We couldn't do anything. Young Diane could not look at Kate's grief-stricken face. It's not your fault. Seeing Kate taking off his spectacles and rubbing his eyes made the duo feel even worse. Ned took out the metal suitcase and said, The exploration team asked us to make sure this is delivered to you. It's an important material that can solve the death virus. I wish they made it back alive. This is their accomplishment, and we'll never forget that. If we are able to make a cure out of this, it will be named after them. The duo could not agree more. Young Diane sighed and said, They are heroes. Not being able to save them is a regret that I'll remember for life. Don't feel that way. Their hard work wouldn't have paid off if not for you guys. You have done what you could, and you shouldn't blame yourselves for that. If you don't mind, we would like to take care of your wounds for free, Kate said with appreciation. No need to, I can't trouble you any further. The more appreciation Kate showed, the sorrier the duo felt. They rejected the invitation and walked out with straight backs. Kate pushed his spectacles and watched the duo leave. He then walked toward Han Zio with a smile and said, Greetings, do you have any business for the research institution? Han Zio returned the smile and opened the metal suitcase, showing Kate the mutated heart. This is a death virus-infected heart from a very strong being. Kate's eyes sparkled, and he said with an even brighter smile, Please follow me. As he led the way, Kate said, The death virus has always been a very important project in our research. We kept running into obstacles and meeting limits because we don't have enough supplies of lively materials. This heart is very important to us. We might be able to make a drug out of it straight away. As usual, we will give you a dose of it once it's completed, but of course, we can exchange that for something else if you would like other rewards. No need for that, I want the drug. Han Zio pointed at the metal suitcase in Kate's hands that came from young Diane and Ned and said, I thought you already have the material. This? Well, this is important, too. Kate laughed it off and did not explain further. They stopped outside a big biological experiment lab. Please kindly wait here. Unauthorized personnel are not allowed in the experimental lab. Han Zio passed the suitcase to Kate, who then walked in with both suitcases and spoke to someone that seemed to be the supervisor of the experimental lab. Kate and the lab supervisor spoke quietly, but with Han Zio's LV-55 senses, He could hear everything they said. What happened to the exploration team? All dead, the supervisor asked. Yes, Kate replied, the heroes couldn't save them. At least the stuff is delivered. Never mind that they died. With this heart, we can make the drugs very soon. What did the heroes say? They felt they couldn't live up to our trust. Employing these heroes is so much cheaper than mercenaries. As long as we give them a good reason, they might even do things for free. Saved me quite some money. You didn't get found out, did you? Of course not. They're stupid and naive. A few lies, and they were easily touched and even almost cried. These so-called heroes are the easiest to convince. A little compliment and appreciation will make them lose their senses. They thought that they did a very honorable thing when they left. I almost burst into laughter. Don't offend these heroes. Do our best to build a good relationship with them. Don't worry, I gave them a good impression. Hanzio waited calmly without changing his expression. Kate finished the conversation not long after. He came back outside the room and said with a polite smile, "It takes 1 day to make the drug. If you don't mind, we can provide a room for you to rest, and the drug will be handed to you as soon as it's done." Okay, Hanzio did not object. They took the lift to the residential floor, and Hanzio was given a guest room. Kate mentioned a few areas that he was not allowed to enter and found an excuse to leave. Hanzio checked the room for cameras and found 2 of them, so he took out his laptop and hacked into the system, controlled the cameras in his room, and set it to a loop. He then hacked into the database of the research institution without hesitation to look at their research projects. After some time of finding, he finally found the Death Virus project. In its detailed description, this was an experiment that could enhance one's physical capabilities, and the research institution was certainly not doing any research on the cure that young Diane and Ned talked about. Hanzio's eyes flashed as he clicked his keyboard, and he had planted a program. Kate came to Hanzio's room on the next day, carrying a metal suitcase. He placed the suitcase on the table, patted it, and said, "The drug has been completed." When Hanzio opened the suitcase, thick white gas escaped from within, and inside was a dark red, viscous drug. He reached out his hands to touch it, and information showed up in the interface. "They gave me the one with the lowest quality," Hanzio thought as he closed the suitcase. "I'm satisfied with this," he said with a smile. "We look forward to our next partnership," Kate replied politely. "No need to look forward. I want to buy more drugs. What do you have in stock?" "We only provide long-term bulk supplies to large organizations and customers with abilities. If it's a single customer, especially one with an unknown origin, I'm afraid it will be quite difficult. We hope you can understand. However, we can sell it in bulk to you if you can prove your ability to afford them in the long term." Kate expressed his difficulties just the right amount and made it look like he really wanted to agree but could not because of the rules and regulations. However, in the eyes of an experienced person like Hanzio, it was very obviously done on purpose, most likely to raise the price. Hanzio smiled mysteriously. He adjusted his collar and said, "Allow me to introduce myself officially. I'm an executive officer of Germinal Organization, Heisenberg." Kate was very surprised. Germinal Organization. Didn't they leave the Western continent? Is this so-called Heisenberg guy a secretly active executive officer, or is he lying? Forgive me for being so straightforward, but your identity is very suspicious. Kate took 2 steps back and placed his right hand in his pocket holding the alarm. If Hanzio made any suspicious movements, he would trigger the alarm. "Don't have to be so nervous, give me a moment." Hanzio walked into the toilet with his backpack. Why is he going to the toilet? Just as when Kate was confused, Hanzio walked out wearing Viper. The mechanical suit that looked highly advanced gave Kate a shock. "Wow, what are you?" Hanzio swung his arms around and said through the suit's speaker, "This is the latest single-unit mechanical suit invented by the Germinal Organization. If your eyes still work, you should be able to see the amount of advanced technology used in this." Kate hesitated and said, "I need to discuss with the other high-ranked officials." "He can't prove it, not trustworthy." "Do you want him to shout I'm part of the Germinal Organization everywhere he goes?" "I think there's no need for him to lie. We will know if he's the real deal when we make the trade." "Makes sense to me. But cooperating with the Germinal Organization seems somewhat dangerous." Hanzio cut in their conversation and said, "Any trade we make will be kept confidential. As long as you and I don't tell anyone, no one will know. We can even give you some financial support to build new divisions in Andrea." The eyes of all the high-ranked officials in the research lab turned bright. Andrea was filled with radiation, and many genes-mutated flora and fauna avoided by others were treasures to them. They had heard about the generosity of Germinal Organization. In Maple, the government was corrupt, and they had just about had enough of it. It seemed like a rather good plan to change the environment. Even if they did not move their headquarters, opening a research division in Andrea was a pretty good idea, too. Shall we try to make a deal? Bring him to the exhibition room. The drugs exhibition room looked like cold storage from outside the door. Kate entered the password, and the doors slid open. These are the products of our research institution. Which ones does your organization want? Kate said with a smile. Han Zhao acted like he was looking around and said, every one of them. Money is not a problem, as long as you have enough in stock. Joy filled the faces for the high-ranked officials who were watching through the camera. This was a big order. Han Zhao raised his eyebrows. But I will have to verify their effects first. Kate opened the showcase's password lock, took out a drug, and passed it to Han Zhao. Han Zhao read the information on the interface. It was a temporary enhancement drug. Consuming it would grant a +3 endurance buff for 3 minutes. After making sure all the drugs in these showcases were real, Han Zhao calmly said, I will need a large quantity. Kate received commands through the headphones. He took out a laptop, opened the price page, and said with a smile, we have enough inventory. After you have made the payment, these cute little things will be yours. Kate said with a smile on his face. Seems like this is as far as I can get by lying. Han Zhao's eyes flashed. He had no intention of paying. He placed the gun against Kate's forehead before he could react and said, this is my payment. The laptop fell onto the ground with a bang. The threatening feel from the gun muzzle made Kate tremble all over. You're a fake. Han Zhao did not reply. He fired at the showcase, but the glass was bulletproof. It only cracked but did not shatter. Far away in the surveillance room, the high-ranked officials were shocked. He wants to rob our finished products. Luckily, we brought him to the exhibition room where there are security systems. The metal door of the exhibition room shut tight, and the showcases moved back into the walls, leaving no traces behind. The room became empty, and the ceiling moved aside, revealing 3 rows of guns whose range covered the entire room. Han Zhao and Kate were both under the guns. Didn't expect that, did you? We were suspicious of your origins from the start. Now that your life is under our control, you have no escape. We just have to press a button and you will be dead. Unless you want to know how many seconds it will take for these guns to turn you into a puddle of blood. Put down the guns, take off the mechanical suit, and get down to your knees. Then tell us your true identity, origin, and who sent you. Han Zhao looked up at the dark black guns. The cameras were in the corners of the room, and the high-ranked officials were looking at him through those. He even knew that the vents could release poisonous gas. With a cold expression, he issued a voice command. Launch program. The smart chip in the mechanical suit immediately recognized the command and connected to the standby computer. It then entered the research institution's intranet and activated the hacking program planted by Han Zhao the previous night. The research institution's system fell like dominoes in the face of the hacking program. Without much effort, the entire authority system was overridden, and Han Zhao gained control in a few seconds. The walls of the exhibition room reopened, and the showcases appeared again. The guns on the ceiling slid back, and the doors opened. In the exhibition room, Kate was stunned. He looked into the Han Zhao's black goggles, and fear gnawed at his heart. His legs softened, and he fell to the ground. Smoke rose from the ground between his legs where the bullet had hit. Kate was extremely afraid, not even daring to move. Stay there and don't move. You can still live, Han Zhao said in a mocking tone. Oh okay, calm down, Kate replied hastily as cold sweat wet his entire back. At the start, he had no intention of robbing the research institution. However, that changed when he accidentally overheard Kate and the high-ranked official talking about young Diane and Ned. Since the research institution was not one with morals, Han Zhao did not bother to do things the nice way. They neither were good people anyways, so they might as well follow the rules of the wicked. Whoever was stronger had the right to take from the weaker side. If the opposite party had reliable morals and beliefs, Han Zhao would not mind interacting with them normally. But if they made Han Zhao unhappy and were not strong enough, Han Zhao would go back to his old habits when he was a player, robbing whatever he saw. Furthermore, he was very interested in the research institution's drugs. An old saying appeared in Han Zhao's mind. Karma will find its way. Wickedness will be dealt with by the wicked. Looks like I've become wicked. Han Zhao laughed. An opportunity to do bad things without feeling guilty did not come by often. He picked up his backpack and walked toward the lift. Kate's body was still soft. He let out a sigh of relief as he saw Han Zhao leaving, but the fear was still lingering in his mind. The high-ranked officials in the surveillance room were bleeding in their hearts when they saw all the drugs being taken. One of them yelled in anger, quickly think about what can we do. I got it. Ask the switchboard room to cut off all electricity in the basement and trap him in there. As Han Zio arrived at the lift, the entire floor's lights turned off. He raised his eyebrows and switched to night vision, cutting off the power as expected. Han Zio's legs bent as the power from nanotechnology muscle fiber gathered in his legs and burst in an instant. The floor cracked open, and he shot through the ceiling like a rocket. After 2 jumps, Han Zio bumped straight into the hall. A group of guards who were gathering came into his sights. There were only some 20 of them, not even 1/5 of the research institution's guards. Han Zio's way of going up the floors was way too swift and violent. It didn't give much time for the research institution to react. Stall the enemy. The rest of the guards will be here in less than 20 seconds. FCK. Before he could even finish giving the order, Han Zio bumped through the guards like a bowling ball hitting a strike and sent them flying. The guards could not even slow him down as he broke through the glass door and disappeared in the streets. The people there could only catch a tint of black shadow. The high-ranked officials of the research institution were raging with anger. They were hopeful that the guards could at least stall him for 15 minutes. But they barely could for 3 seconds. Seeing the drugs would not able to be retrieved, the superiors' hearts were bleeding, and they were furious. When will the Maple military arrive? At least 10 minutes. That's too long. That asshole would have been long gone. Is there any other way? Kate had returned to normal and immediately said, the superhero duo is still in the city. I will contact them now. Young Diane received a phone call from Kate. Confused, he asked, Mr. Kate, are you looking for us? Kate sounded anxious. A robber has taken the products of the research institution, including the oppressor for the death virus. If we can't retrieve it, our results will be lost. Since the military can't make it in time, we have to count on you guys. The duo turned serious. We will definitely help. That's great. You're our only hope. I'll send you the coordinates. The enemy is a man wearing a black mechanical suit. Black mechanical suit. Young Diane and Ned's expressions changed. Running on the street wearing a mechanical suit was too flashy. As soon as Han Zio left the research institution, he climbed onto the rooftop of a building and continued running across rooftops. That way, even if someone saw him, it would not cause as great an impact. So many drug potions, enough for me to drink it like water. Han Zio laughed. It was at this moment that 2 strong vital signs showed up on the radar, and after the automated search in the database, it surprisingly had a match. It turned out to be the 2 superheroes that he had met twice. You have triggered mission. Mission introduction. Heroes of justice are never in short supply, but only the right ways to do it. Some people become depraved and give up their initial goals. Some lose their adherence and become what they swore to fight against. Some are used and lied to. Choosing justice is a tough path, and you can be the trial for them to find the right path toward becoming a real hero. Mission requirements. Defeat Young Diane and Ned, and expose the truth about Louis Research Institution. Rewards, random. Han Zio analyzed the data. I've got a few minutes to kill, just enough time to play with them a little. Han Zio stopped in place and waited. It really is you. Young Diane's face was stern. He had seen the power of this mysterious warrior in the mechanical suit with his own eyes. Even in his peak state, he would probably be beaten in a few punches, and he was now injured. But the thought of Han Zio robbing the cure to the death virus encouraged him to not back up even if he could not win. Ned struck first. His hands slapped forward, and a shockwave filled the alley. The paint on the walls shed, and cracks appeared on the ground. In a flash, Han Zio jumped up, drawing a swift arc midair, and bumped toward the enemy like a rocket. Young Diane bit his teeth and stepped forward, swinging out his punch. Bang! The mechanical suit-covered fist was like a bolt of lightning, appearing and disappearing in an instant. Before Young Diane's fist could even swing fully, it had already hit Young Diane's chest heavily. Young Diane's vision turned hazy. Everything in sight seemed to move away rapidly as he flew backwards. He then got punched into the wall with a loud noise, every bone in the body almost shattering. They could not even last 3 seconds. With absolutely zero chance to fight back, Young Diane was filled with sadness and hatred. How are we supposed to stop the opponent like this? Helplessness penetrated their hearts. Han Zio took a few steps forward. Just as he was going to say something, Young Diane managed to struggle to his feet. With a face filled with unyielding and anger, he clenched his teeth and said, "You took away the cure for the death virus. Lots and lots of people will die because of that. I will stop you today even if it costs me my life." Han Zio stopped in place. He looked at Young Diane with a mocking smile. Dying as a hero, other than dead flowers, empty words, and a few hypocritical tears, what else can you get? Young Diane clenched his teeth even harder. It doesn't matter how others look at me as long as I'm happy with what I'm doing. Han Zio took out his handgun and pressed it against Young Diane's forehead. The black-colored muzzle brought Yang Dian back to his senses. He wanted to struggle, but Han Zhao stepped on his legs, then slowly applied pressure to the trigger. Yang Dian's eyes widened. At this moment, regret uncontrollably flooded his mind. If I wasn't so meddlesome, I wouldn't die today. In front of an enemy that's this strong, even if I bet my life on it, I wouldn't be able to stop him for a bit. Coming here was just giving my life away. I shouldn't have accepted the request. I was too impulsive. The trigger reached its end. Yang Dian's entire body trembled, only to realize that he did not feel any pain. He was stunned as he watched Han Zhao back off. Then he realized that cold sweat had drenched all his clothes. Although he could not see his own face, he knew that it was definitely a twisted expression filled with fear, regret, and unwillingness. Han Zhao put his handgun with the empty clip back to the holster, took out a laptop, transferred some data to a thumb drive, and threw it to Yang Dian. Yang Dian and Ned froze in place. The enemy left just like that. Why did he not kill us? Yang Dian held the thumb drive in a daze. We are no match for him. Don't go up to him and look for death. We have to leave here first. Yang Dian held on to Ned, and they left limping. He was confused and could not focus at all. He lay on bed dazed, the thoughts from just now flashing in his mind non-stop. He could feel that his belief and perspective of being a superhero were shaken. It was a war against his own mind. At this time, Ned could not hold back his curiosity of what was inside the thumb drive. He plugged it into the laptop, and only a few seconds of looking at it made him break out in cold sweat. Yang, come here and look at this. The files on the thumb drive were a part of the data that Han Zhao had gotten from hacking into the research institution. Every research project of the death virus was clearly written to be regarding enhancing physical abilities and biochemistry weapons. There was no mention of the cure Kate talked about. It was also written that the exploration team that had gone into the Robert Forbidden Zone had been gathering materials for physical ability enhancements research. This is real. Could he be lying? He could have killed us easily. Why would he lie to us? Yang Dian and Ned slowly turned from consternation to rage. It turned out that they were like two idiots from the start to the end, toyed with by the people of Louis Research Institution. They could not believe that they were so naive to have believed the one-sided words of these people. It made them feel like their persistence was nothing but a joke. No wonder the mysterious warrior in the mechanical suit did not kill them. He probably felt that they were pathetic and pitiful, so he told them the truth. Yang Dian was so ashamed and embarrassed that he wanted to dig a hole in the ground and hide in it. They kept calling themselves superhero, but they were saved by a stranger who they deemed wicked twice. Han Zhao had taken off the mechanical suit, changed his face, and mixed into the crowd. Completed. Plus 40 Yang Dian's impression of you, plus 40 Ned's impression of you. Han Zhao waited for some time, but there were no new notifications. That's it. What do I need the good impression from these two guys for? He had never even heard of these two guys before, so they were probably not anyone important. Han Zhao was speechless. It was a reasonable reward, but he would have even preferred experience points over this. Never mind, it's just a small mission. The biggest rewards are these drugs. When he stole. That's wrong. When he requisitioned the drugs, Han Zhao took everything in the exhibition room of Louis Research Institution, which was almost every type of drug. He found a random small hotel and checked in. Let's see if there's any good stuff. Han Zhao rubbed his hands. He had heard that one would be lucky if one's hands were heated. Green lizard drug, made from the green lizard genes. This is a lazy being. After you drink this, you will feel calm. Han Zhao stunned for 3 seconds. Then he stood up in rage and threw it on the floor. Green my ass, what's the point of even inventing this kind of drug? I would have been luckier if I used my feet one. Looking at this pile of colorful drugs, Han Zhao felt as if a black cloud of bad luck was floating above his head. Let's hope the other drugs are better. He continued searching. There was a total of 34 types of drugs, and luckily, there was not another one that was as useless as the green lizard drug. He used eagle predator drug, plus 3 decks. There were 4 bottles of the death virus drug. He took a short break and finished all of them in one shot. His strength, dexterity, and endurance all increased by 4, and that bottle with high concentration made him awaken the rare talent. Plus 10% health, plus 180% recovery rate, plus 8% abnormalities resistance. It was a tank-biased talent, not up to the standard of being a molding ability, but it did make Han Zhao tankier. He recalled that Gila had a recovery passive too. Extraordinary Physique had similar effects and also gave him another 300 HP from the health boost. As a mechanic, is it really a good thing to be this tanky? Han Zhao did not know whether to laugh or to cry. This was forcing him to fight people head-on. He felt like if he continued like this, his style would totally shatter. I just want to be a technical mechanic. Close combat is for savages. I need to find an offensive talent or manufacturing talent, but those kinds of molding ability are way too rare. The financial organizations behind Louis Research Institution issued a bounty on the darknet very quickly. The target was none other than Heisenberg, and it had the face that Han Zhao had used in the research institution, as well as a recording of him dashing out of the research institution wearing a mechanical suit. The German organization saw this information very soon. There is no such person in our organization. The leader was startled. The organization only had a few deep cover intelligence personnel and spies in other lands, and he absolutely did not order anyone to rob a civilian research institution. There was only one possibility. This Heisenberg was a fake who used the German organization as cover. What kind of nobody was this Heisenberg? What the leader focused on was the performance of the mechanical suit. To his surprise, he realized that this mechanical suit was using technology that was even more advanced than what the organization was currently working on. If we can get hold of this mechanical suit, our single unit combat power will skyrocket. The leader's hands grabbed harder onto the table edge, leaving a clear mark on the metal table. With a serious tone, he ordered, "Tell our intelligence network to pay attention secretly to the user of this mechanical suit. I want to know everything he's doing." Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.